Hey, what's up? Alex here from MIDI Music. In today's video, I'm going to go over how to get started as a music producer, going over all the gear and software and different equipment you'll need to get started producing music. And if you're not just getting started, this is a good refresher on the basics that you might need and different options that are available today. Before we jump in, I want to offer you my free Workflow Wizardry PDF. It's a simple framework that'll help you take your first initial ideas in your creative process and bring them to a finished arrangement, to a finished mix and a master, and share it with the world. And it's laid out in a simple blueprint that you can follow step by step to help keep you focused, motivated, and on track. So you can download it at metamimusic.com/workflow, or you can find a link to it in the description below. The first thing you're going to need to produce music in our modern music production age, which is amazing, is a computer. And this can be a desktop, this can be a laptop, this could even be an iPad or your phone, though I wouldn't recommend that if you're really seriously getting into music production because it is a little bit limiting to work on an iPad or phone, but possible nonetheless. And within all these options, you got to consider, I guess, what are your priorities and what are the main features that are important to you. Personally, I started producing on a laptop because I really enjoyed the portability aspect of it. But if portability isn't an issue, you'll typically get more power, more horsepower for your buck if you go with a desktop or a PC computer. There's basically two main options for computers. There's Macs and there's Windows, or operating systems, I should say. And this really comes down to personal preference. A lot of people love Mac, a lot of people love Windows, a lot of people hate Mac, and a lot of people hate Windows. So it basically comes to personal preference. And I've been working with Macs for quite a while now, so I've learned to really like the interface. It's very streamlined, it's very simple. Of course, it's limited. It's maybe not as powerful or as customizable as a Windows computer, but I don't find that I need those extra parameters or those extra options. And I really like the workflow that I've got on the Mac, so I'm sticking with that. But I have worked on Windows computers before, and I know a lot of people who work on Windows, and they are fantastic as well. So it basically comes down to preference, maybe what you're used to or what feels more comfortable to you at this point right now. So once you've made a decision of, I guess, what operating system you want to use or which kind of computer you want, if it's a laptop or if it's a desktop computer, then you can go ahead and start thinking about what kind of processor and how much RAM you need and all those kind of specs and what are the best specs for producing music. And I've typed in here MacBook 16 gigs RAM because this is what I started with when I was kind of going into music production 100%. And I found that with 16 gigs of RAM, I had more than enough memory to do complete mixes and complete productions without running into any CPU issues. But I have worked with 8 gigs as well, and you could go ahead and go with 8 gigs of RAM, but I have hit the ceiling on those. So just a word of warning, like it might be good to get started, but if you're getting into doing full mixes and a lot of processing, and if your tracks are complex and have a lot of processing and plugins going on, you might find yourself limited with 8 gigs of RAM. So if that's the case, I would suggest to just go ahead and get 16 or even 32, which is what I'm using now, which is more than enough. And if you're getting into video editing and stuff like that, more RAM can never hurt. And I guess it all comes down to your budget. I would also recommend to get at least an i5 quad-core processor. I think this is pretty much a staple in most computers these days, but you could do, I guess, a little bit more research as to what those processors do and what their limitations are relative to what kind of work you foresee yourself doing on this computer. So that's kind of up to your own discretion to decide the specs that you might want and what budget you're working within. So beyond a computer, you're going to need some audio software. You're going to need a digital audio workstation, or a DAW as it's commonly referred to. And I'm going to go ahead and show you a few options. This is the software that allows you to create your music. It allows you to record audio. It allows you to program MIDI. It allows you to upload audio and samples and plugins and rearrange and edit your music. Basically, it brings it from just ideas, bring it all to one place, and creating the final project in a software, right? And that's the modern working environment for creating music in today's world. There are many options to go about what software you use, and this is largely dependent, or at least for some of these softwares, are largely dependent on what OS you decided to choose. For example, I believe FL Studio is only for Windows, and Logic, for example, is only for Mac. So if you want to use one of those softwares because you really like the interface, or you try them out and you feel like it connects with you, then that might influence your decision as to what OS and what computer you want to get. But I'm going to go ahead and start with what I'm using. I'm using Ableton because I have found over the years, and with my new interest in producing music, electronic music, and my background with playing guitar, that it was a lot more interactive with how the software works and how you can easily link MIDI controllers and hardware controllers. It's very intuitive to start to transform your DAW into an instrument of itself instead of just feeling like a software, which I felt was really important for my own personal workflow and creativity. And since I've dove in, I have never looked back. So this is just coming from someone who really likes playing music. Like, I play drums, I play bass, play guitars, and I've been diving into synthesis and sound design. And the workflow in Ableton has just really sparked my creativity. And it comes with amazing built-in software instruments, which is another thing you will need to create music within your software. If you're recording external instruments such as guitars or bass, then you'll need your audio interface, which we'll get into a little later. But other than recording external audio, if you want to be creating audio within your DAW, you're going to need software instruments. And some DAW softwares come with software instruments and some might not. And Ableton comes with a bunch of samples. It comes with a bunch of pre-made presets and instruments. It comes with synthesizers, many different kinds, samplers, all sorts of stuff. So you're more than ready to get started making music if you decide to go with Ableton. They have all these different packs and stuff. So that is one option. I believe they have a free trial that you can try it out. So I would suggest that if you're unsure about it and you just want to see what it's about, go ahead and download the free trial and give it a spin and see if it really starts to resonate with you. And if it doesn't, well, there's many other options. So I'm gonna X this out. The next option is what I was using before Ableton, is Reaper, and it's really great DAW. It's I wouldn't say it's for a beginner level. I feel like you have to know some fundamentals about a DAW and routing and just kind of the workflow before being able to utilize this to the maximum potential. But it has built-in resources and guides and forums, and you could learn about it pretty quickly. And the best thing about this DAW is it's free, and it's a free trial that you could basically keep renewing the free trial as long as you feel necessary until you're ready to purchase it. And when you are ready to purchase it, I believe it's like $60 or something. Yeah, $60, which is super affordable for a fully featured DAW software that you could be creating albums and productions and remixes for years to come for $60. So it's a pretty great deal, and I've used it just because it was such a great deal, and I did really like the interface. So it's definitely something to think about, although I don't think Reaper comes with built-in software instruments. So it might have a few, but if you really want to have a large library of sounds and instruments to start with and to play around with, this might not be an option. Or if you wanted to buy an external pack of instruments, like from Native Instruments or sample packs or software instruments, that then you could combine it with this and have that sort of library. So Reaper is a great option. It's free to try. It's actually free to keep using as long as you want, and as long as until you're ready to purchase it. So very great tool. Next is Pro Tools, and this is pretty much the industry standard for any sort of high-end studio or recording studio. Like if you're like working in a studio that you've rented with a band to record your own band, or to work with another artist to record them and produce them, like 99% of the time, that studio will be using Pro Tools as their DAW. And when I went to audio school, we learned Pro Tools because it was the industry standard. If you foresee yourself working in big studios and really freelancing your mixing and production services commonly, or if that's your main goal, you might want to consider using Pro Tools, because all of the knowledge and know-how that you gain using the software will definitely carry over to when you work within these other facilities and with other people who use Pro Tools within the industry. So that is one big thing. I don't think that it's free. I think they might have a version of it, Pro Tools First, which is like a free trial that you could just see how it's laid out and how it works. And I still personally use Pro Tools whenever I track like a band, or if I'm recording a band, I will use this just because it's easier to transfer files back to my home studio when I have to do editing and post-production. And I'll just basically renew my subscription, because you can buy a subscription to this, and I'll just renew it for the month that I need to do the editing, and then I'll kick it back into Ableton to do my mixing. But it's a great software, and it is an industry standard. It is super powerful. It's basically got all the features under the sun, and I'm pretty sure it has built-in plugins and effect suites and everything you would possibly need to start making music. But if you're primarily only working at home and you're not recording bands and you're not recording a lot of external audio and using outboard gear and all this stuff, maybe it's too much for you, maybe it's unnecessary. I'll leave that up to you to decide. But it is definitely the industry standard, and it is a great DAW if you decide to use it. Next is Logic Pro X, which I actually have used as well before I used Pro Tools, before I went to audio school. And it is a great, super intuitive. I love the interface. I love the built-in software and the built-in VST instruments. Super versatile and great sounding stuff in there. It's a great choice if you're a Mac user, because this is a Mac-only software. So if you decided to get a MacBook Pro or something like that, then this might be an option for you. And I do believe that they just updated their Pro X software to 10.5 or something. And in this update, they've incorporated many of the features that I really love about Ableton, like the looping features and the sampling and the session view to arrangement view, workflow options. They've incorporated this into their update. So I feel like this could be a serious contender if you're more into the beat making or electronic music, or if you want to have your DAW more so as a creative extension of your music making process, which I love that idea. If you're into that, then Logic Pro is definitely a serious contender for you, because with that new update, they're definitely competing with Ableton and all of these newer DAWs that are more so like instruments. So really, really cool stuff there. I would definitely recommend you check this out if you like the layout after the free trial, or if you're a Mac user and you just want a great DAW. And finally, I'm going to mention FL Studio because I know that it's very popular in today's day and age. I haven't actually used it, so I can't say anything from firsthand experience about it. But I believe it's Windows only, and I've heard very good things about it. So there's a free trial. You can just give it a go and see if you vibe with it. And that's what I suggest you do, is basically go to the ones that are kind of attracting you, read their features, see which ones sound like they fit your needs the best. Maybe check out some tutorials, check out some workflow stuff on YouTube about them, and just give them a try, and then really see which one you vibe with the most, because this is going to be your biggest tool. This is going to be like the thing that you interact with the most in making your music and in producing stuff and in finishing records and mixing and remixing and collaborating, creating stuff. All that stuff is going to be your number one tool. So I suggest you find something you really, really are excited about. So beyond having your DAW, having your software instruments potentially, and your computer, the next thing you're going to need is an interface. And an interface is effectively it's a sound card, and it basically processes all the incoming and outgoing audio to your computer. So most computers have a headphone jack, which you can get the output from. But if you're serious in any shape, way, or form about producing music, you're going to want an audio interface because it just takes that load off your computer. There's preamps that enhance the quality of your recordings. It reduces latency and takes the CPU usage off your computer, and is basically a standard. And this is how you would record your microphone, like I am right now for my voice, or your guitar, or your bass, or an external synthesizer, or any form of audio that you want to record with a microphone. You would plug into the front of this interface, which are either line in or instrument in. So you can plug in your guitar straight, or you can plug in an XLR from your microphone and record that audio straight into your DAW. And I will suggest the Focusrite 4i4 because this is what I am using currently. They have other versions that are, I believe, less inputs and outputs, more simple interface, and you can really decide what you need for how much external audio you need and how many inputs and outputs you want to play with. But what I like about this is the interface is simple. It has never failed me. It has never, I've had it for I think 4 or 5 years, and not once has it failed. And it has little lights that line up in the front for your input to see if you're clipping. It has a direct playback knob if you want to hear the direct input. It's got headphones out, and it's everything you would need to get started. And of course, there's bigger interfaces if you wish, but you don't really need to break the bank on one of these. You just need something that's reliable, that sounds good, and you're good to go. So that's my suggestion. Anything by Focusrite Scarlett series are great. There are a lot of other great options, but this is the one I'll recommend since I've been using it for quite a while. Next is you're going to need something to hear back, to hear the playback of your audio. And you can do this with either headphones or external monitors. And it's really up to you how much you want to invest in your studio up front. But if you get external studio monitors, these will help you start to train your ear to hear what other final productions sound like through them. If you listen to music through them regularly, you'll start to pick up how professional records sound, like what the spectrum of frequencies and how they're represented on your speaker. And I love to suggest the Yamaha HS5 if you have like a medium room size, because you don't need 2 big monitors if you're in a small room. And this is a nice, affordable option to get started, reliable. I haven't used these. I have the ones that are slightly bigger because I'm using a bigger room and I wanted the extra bass response, the HS8s, I believe. So either of those would be great options to get started if you want monitors. And I would suggest you think about monitors if you're more serious about mixing and really fine-tuning the frequencies. Monitors are a great way to get an accurate representation of the sound you're creating and modifying. So beyond, if you decide to get a monitor or not monitor, beyond that is you can get some headphones. And there's nothing wrong with mixing and creating music in headphones. I don't know if I would be able to wear headphones all the time when I'm creating music, but if you're just getting started, there's nothing wrong with that. And I have mixed songs, and plenty of fantastic records and mixes have been done through headphones. So there's nothing limiting about using headphones, but it's just maybe something that you might want to grow out of eventually. But to get started, using some Audio-Technica ATH M40s or 50s are a great entry price. They're not too expensive. They're like from $130 to $200. And with those, you can get started. They'll last you forever. They'll last you 4 to 5 years and will allow you to create music, right? It will allow you to hear playback and finish your songs, right? You need something for sure to hear back your music, right? We want to hear what we're doing. Finally, I suggest a MIDI controller, which is basically, this is an external instrument that will deliver MIDI So if you get a Scarlett interface that has MIDI in, you can use this, but I believe most MIDI keyboards these days are USB in. So as long as you have a USB port in your computer, you plug this into your USB port, and then it sends MIDI data to your digital audio workstation. And what this does is basically is a trigger for you to play all your software instruments. So for example, if you loaded a synth inside Ableton, if you went with Ableton, you could plug this keyboard into your computer, and the keyboard would then start sending MIDI data towards Ableton to recreate the sound of the synth that you have loaded, right? And the reason why I suggest getting one of these is because I'm a huge advocate of playing music into your work productions. I'm not a huge fan of programming everything because I do find that it becomes very stale and robotic very quickly. And the things that I love about music and that I really believe are the things that make it infectious and stand the test of time is the human element. And the way you're going to get the human element into electronic music productions or any of your productions is to be playing something. And it's not to be necessarily a master at an instrument, but to be able to express yourself through an instrument. And then you can edit it and change it afterwards if need be. And if you agree with me on this philosophy, then this is a great place to start, because you can start learning how to create bass lines, how to start making chords and chord progressions, and learn how to play keyboards and learning the different scales, modes, whatever it may be. And then you have 8 pads on top to then trigger drums and play rhythmic sequences. And you also have faders, pots to then adjust parameters of whatever you decide to attach it to. So you have a lot of expressive capabilities all packed into a tight, neat, a little tiny keyboard, which is not that expensive. And I would really suggest having this. It's fun. You'll have a lot more fun playing the sounds that you're sculpting and designing and performing, recording with a controller. And I believe this controller also has transport controls, which means you can start and stop playback on your DAW with a click of a button. Isn't that great? So this is my suggestion for a MIDI controller to get started, because it has drum pads, it has the pots, and it has keyboards, and it's very compact and it's very cost effective. And that's pretty much everything you would need to get started. If you have your computer, your software, you have some software instruments, depending on what software you decided to get, they might be included or they might not be included, and you might have to buy external software instruments or use real instruments. And then you have your interface to record audio and to play back your audio. You have headphones and monitors to hear that audio playback, whether it be for mixing or if it's just to hear back your audio so that you can actually finish your songs and hear what you're doing. It's pretty necessary. And finally, you get a controller to be able to express yourself and play your instruments through your software and express yourself to a higher degree than just with mouse clicks, because that gets old quick. And a little bonus at the end here is if say you decided to get a software that didn't have built-in software instruments, or if you did pick a software that has built-in VSTs and stuff, I'm going to point you towards this Native Instruments Complete Start production suite. And basically it's just a free production suite full of different synths and sample instruments and effects and tools to play around with, and it's all free, which is amazing. So Native Instruments definitely killed it to provide this. So regardless if you have them or not, you might as well download this and have some extra tools to play around with. So with all of those components, you're ready to start making music. You're ready to start producing complete songs and allow your creativity to channel through you at a higher level. And you don't want to be limited by cutting yourself short of these fundamental things, because it's not that expensive. And once you start getting these fundamental tools all together and you start making music, it's really going to pay off. You're really going to find it worth it to have invested just this little amount of money into getting started. And that's pretty much all you need. If you have any questions about different gear or software instruments or ways to produce music or anything else you'd love to hear in the future, just go ahead and leave a comment below. and I'd be happy to get back to you. And if you haven't already, go ahead and download my Workflow Wizardry PDF. It's that simple guide to help you get started, help you get your ideas off the ground, help you get your ideas from just concepts and motifs to a song, and layer ideas on top of each other to then bring it to a final arrangement and then edit it towards a higher level of perfection, get it mixed, get it mastered, and then be able to share it with your friends, family, and the world and be proud about it. And that's all in this guide. So you can download it at www.metamindmusic.com/workflow or find it in the link below in the description. And that's it for this video. So I hope that you guys are excited. And if you're just getting started, once you get all these things, you'll be super excited to get started. And if you've already started producing music, I hope this helps you just go over the basics and maybe some different ideas about workflow and what you might need or not need to get started. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.